I again was looking to the future and thinking what I should do for the longer term, and I became interested in the possibility of doing some postgraduate work. We'd had an NZSP conference in Dunedin in 1984, I think. One of the speakers who was at the conference was the Dean of the School of Physical Education, David Russell, and in his presentation he was talking about the developments within the university and the potential for the university to begin to recognise people with prior learning who may not have a university degree but who may have almost the equivalent and could potentially go in to do postgraduate work. So that sparked a little light in my brain, I think, and I began to think that there could be a possibility for me to look at that as a way of moving my career. And at one stage I'd been looking at perhaps going more into management in the hospital, and there was a course run through Massey that was for hospital managers, and whilst I was given the opportunity, I could have had a place on the course, I wasn't able to go because I wasn't a hospital manager and I wasn't supported by the physiotherapy manager, who at the time was very resistant to other people being successful in the department. So I thought, well, there must be another pathway, and so I talked to Professor Russell and I made the application and took the big step to go to university, and they were a bit wary of me because I was the first physiotherapist who'd enrolled on this program, and I wasn't on the master's program initially. I had to do some coursework so that I could prove to them that I was capable of working at that level. So I used to go into the hospital really early in the morning. I wasn't really able to get leave either from the physiotherapy department, so I would go really early and do my ICU work from 7 o'clock, and then I'd rush down to a lecture at 8 o'clock and then come back and do my work again after that. And I survived that way for the year, and I passed my papers, and I was then accepted onto the master's program, which was through the School of Physical Education, and in no way am I a physeta, but it was a means to an end. It was the school or the department in the university that was able to take me, and I was very clear when I went that I still wanted to be seen as a physiotherapist and do physiotherapy things, but it was the opportunity for me to undertake a master's level program. So I then decided that I had to resign from my position because I had to be a full-time student. So I did resign and took on full-time study as a master's student in the School of Physical Education. For my thesis, I was able to go back to the hospital and work with the cardiologists, and at that stage they had a new type of pacemaker that was activity rate responsive, so when people moved, the rate on the pacemaker increased so that it actually became a higher heart rate, whereas most pacemakers seem to, they're set at a particular level. So we were looking at the exercise tolerance of these people who had the activity rate responsive pacemakers. So I was able to undertake that research with a supervisor from cardiology and obviously a second supervisor from the School of Physical Education, and we had the treadmill on the 7th floor of the hospital in the back part where they were undertaking respiratory and cardiac research anyway, and unfortunately the gas analyzer broke down. So I used to have to get these huge Douglas bags filled with air, arrange to have my little car close by, then I'd drive the car around to the front door of the hospital, put these huge Douglas bags with gas in them, drive them down to the School of Physical Education, analyse the gas and bring them back again. So I'll never forget those days. It was just quite something to have to take these bags back and forth from the hospital after I'd actually analysed the gas. Anyway, it was all part of the experience of being a master's student in those days. And of course, I didn't have a computer. Nobody really had computers. We had a computer in the department in the School of Physical Education, so I was able to do my graphs on a coloured printer, so that was really quite novel. But in those days, the typical thing was that you would write out in handwriting all of your draft chapters. And then I had this very lucky experience of being able to find a willing typist, somebody who was working in the medical department, who also did typing of theses. And so she would type my words and then I'd proof them and then get back to her. So that was how you wrote up a thesis in those days. So that was duly completed and I graduated with a master's in 87, and so that was the beginning of my formal links with the School of Physiotherapy.